Alrighty, y'all. G'day again. We are taking a look at, well, one of the most interesting places in the world because every episode we do from here is always fascinating and there's still more stuff to look at. Yeah, we're looking at Australia, of course. It's one of my faves, and it really the lineup today, I promise you, it's pretty interesting. Let's just take a look at what's going on in Australia. All right, so of course, first up, starting with some, classic Australian humor, Australian shenanigans. Yeah, only in Australia, a car with no rego, right? No rego. Rego? Rego. We know it's registration. I think it's no rego, though. That sounds better. Rego is what the Aussies call vehicle registration. Of course, it's illegal to drive with no rego, but this person cleverly has their plate on the car, but it says no rego. Gotta love it, right? We've seen good license plates, funny license plates, rather. I think we have our share here in the U.S., but boy, so does Australia. And just for those who were wondering, this is a real plate, right? They were asking, is it proper? Is it a vanity plate? It's a real plate and apparently legal, right? This would fall under, I believe, a vanity plate, right? Where you can get custom messages on there as long as it's approved. I just looked up the registration and it's real. So pretty clever by that motorist, and I'm sure giving a few people a laugh when you're stuck in traffic. Pretty fun. Now, we have seen some interesting posts about prices in Australia, right? Usually around, grocery stores, supermarkets, that type of thing. This one is actually shopping online, which is all too common nowadays, right? You can see their location. They're in Sydney, New South Wales. What's funny is that this bike is on sale, right? New low price. First of all, I don't know what kind of bike we're talking about here. I don't know much about bicycles, but apparently this is way out of my league. We have an Amflow Carbon Pro Black, right? This thing is usually 11 grand, right? 11,399 Aussie dollars. But if you get it soon, you can get it for the sale price of $16,404. Now that is some Aussie sale math. Yeah, I thought this was hilarious. The location says Australia, so when there's a sale, it means the prices go up. Yes, it's an inverted universe. Yeah, that is a spectacular deal. This is Australia. Everyone needs their coffee. Yeah, everyone. Key word. Got to be a flat white. Now, in the few times I've explored maps, Google Earth, these types of things around Australia, it's very, very fascinating, as you would expect, especially for someone, from the outside. But it's a big place, right? So it's hard to cover it all, right? There's so many millions of things I have not discovered in Australia. And this being one of them, I gotta admit, stumbling upon this from a satellite view would be, quite a fascinating find. Someone found it. I'm not sure people are aware that it looks like this down on the ground. Perhaps not. But this is in Queensland, Australia, near Ulrich Family Park. Yeah. Real family going on there. A family of something. This is hilarious for obvious reasons. Do you need me to spell it out? Of course not. I know you all can see that. I live down by the Dicks. I mean docks. No, wait. I do mean the Dicks. That sums it up. I just wonder how this happened. Is this truly intentional? I mean, it looks like a cool area, right? We got a road, the neighborhood extends onward out of the frame there. We have a golf course even. What is the story here, right? Like, they had to have known what they were doing. They had to have. It's Australia. You just never know. Someone could have certainly, a developer could have done this on purpose, I suppose, right? I mean, I don't know. I really hope someone in the comments knows about this and can maybe expand upon this, because this is hilarious. Of course, Australia is also known for hilarious signs. I'm not sure if this one is truly Australian humor or if it's accidentally hilarious. I'm leaning towards a second, but I gotta show it anyway. It's good for a laugh. Sorry to highlight the Uniting Church in Australia, Cherrybrook, sorry. But just a reminder, Christmas comes because Christ came. Thank you. Like the title suggests, that is a origin story I have not heard. And could have gone without hearing. This one by an Australian is pretty funny, I have to admit. I love the humor, right? The New Zealand Navy on their way to invade Australia. Pretty impressive machinery here. Now, of course, the platform is a little questionable. Can you imagine the recoil on this? This is actually hilarious, although a little bit interesting as well. But I don't think Australia is sweating in their boots just yet. And just one more deal one. I'm sorry, I have to. These are hilarious. And we'll move on to some other interesting things. But this is a deal, right? You've all heard of spend a certain threshold of money and you get a free something else. This one's a little out there. Not the best deal I've ever heard of. I hope they didn't con anyone to, falling for this. I highly doubt they did. We are in Australia here after all. The daily deal, spend $120, get a free water bottle. So, of course, from Canberra. Wow, Canberra, impressive. I'm sure people are just running through the doors at this establishment. Unless this water bottle is some magic bottle that just never empties. You drink and drink and it's always full. I'd say this is a shit deal. All right, now moving along to just some other random interesting things out of Australia. This is from 2012. Market researchers in Australia set out to find the latest attractive color to use for plain cigarette packaging. They determined that Pantone 448C to be the ugliest color in the world. And it is now the official color of all cigarettes in Australia. You know, this is kind of interesting. A couple reasons. A, just the ugliest color in the world. You know, that's a thing, right? I kind of would agree. This is a pretty ugly color. And it is one of those things like, how do they find that, right? They just kind of look at every gradient, I suppose, of every color ever known in history. Like a greenish brown almost. And I got to admit, even if ugly is not the right word for it, it's just extremely dull and boring, right? It's kind of fascinating, like science, right? Even, gray or black, I guess, are more interesting than this. You know what I mean? Like you'd think of those muted colors as just kind of boring, but this somehow tops it. Anyhow, it's pretty interesting how they use this on the cigarette packaging. They also show you, some other symptoms of smoking. So they really let you know right on the package, like, yo, you're going to get guilt tripped to hell back by grabbing this. Good luck. Well, safe to say I've never seen something quite like this. This is a runaway sheep found roaming wild in a state forest in Victoria, Australia, overgrown with 78 pounds or 35 kilograms of matted wool. 35 kilograms, y'all. She surely enjoyed the long-awaited haircut, as you can see, looking full of life after. But yeah, that big mess right there, that's the same animal. That is pretty crazy, I have to say. What a world of relief. I'm sure she felt like an Olympian after that, right? Imagine how weighed down and non-agile you would be with this going on. It's kind of crazy that it just grows that much. There's probably more to the story here, and I'm definitely not a sheep expert by any means. But again, I've never really seen anything like this. What would this be like seeing this in a wild? Right? You're just taking a hike through the forest and you see this walking around. Whoa. This next one's pretty fascinating as well. It seems like they're always discovering new animals, new insects, just, various creatures that roam Australia. The laundry list of, scary creatures that inhabit it already, and to think that there's always discovering more is just, pretty mind-blowing. This next one they claim is, an alien ant, at least, more of a nickname. This is the Lord Voldemort ant. It's a tiny blind species that lives in darkness. There you go. It's some weird metallic gold, hairy-looking ant. It definitely looks kind of alien when it's in that color and so shiny. There you go. There's a little side-by-side. Not exactly twins, but I could see it if you squint. I get it. Yeah. There you go. Be on the lookout. The Voldemort ant. Good luck, y'all. I know you Aussies can handle it. Thank goodness you can, because no one else in the world can. Now, I don't know how you feel about these, although I have to say, just getting a glance at this, it's pretty cool, right? I don't know how it works. I don't know the cost. I don't know how, good this is. Build quality might be great. I'm not exactly sure, but I find this very interesting. I would love to see one in person and, feel it out. This is Australia's first full-scale 3D printed duplex. Okay, and you can see the pictures here. Honestly, it looks kind of awesome, right? It looks like it's really well done. Some people might think this is odd, and that's totally fair. I do think it's kind of cool, right? The way the textured walls look like that, right? Like a 3D printed object would look. It's just on a massive scale. I think it's kind of fun. It gives a very unique aesthetic. I suppose it depends on who you are. I feel like it almost looks kind of classy, like kind of cool and modern. I suppose at the same time, some people might think it looks tacky or looks cheap. I don't know. I think it looks all right. I think it really works for like the darker colored inside walls. I think it's just interesting to me. And I wonder really how much these would be. I wonder how feasible this is on a grand scale. Something I really have not looked into, so I don't want to speak like I know what I'm talking about with these, but at face value, I think it looks pretty cool. This is pretty awesome. We have space footage of the beautiful auroras sweeping across Southeast Asia and, of course, Australia. So check this out. Thought this was pretty incredible. Okay, there's music, of course, but we'll mute that. But you can see here, right? It's hard to really make out the land masses. Maybe you guys might be able to better than I. Obviously, you can see, the lights, like city lights, population centers. And you start to see these auroras, the colors, the shifts. Look at that red hue kind of coming off the Earth. It's actually incredible. I think a lot of us take for granted how awesome the planet we live on is, right? I mean, space is probably full of incredible things that blow our mind, but I mean, really our own planet. Look at this, right? This is awesome. This is where we live. This is Earth. For a lot of you watching, this is exactly where you live. This is Australia, and you got this going on right above your head. Yeah. Pretty freaking cool. Bravo. I always forget about these. Here's a picture of a tree kangaroo. And like I said, I always forget about these. I always think of gray kangaroos, right? Those are like the most common, the eastern grays, right? Of course, you might have some different regions. You have the red kangaroos, right? You have wallabies, those kinds of animals, right? But the tree kangaroo, it looks a lot different. Now, of course, still has the pouch. You have the little tyke in there. And a little bit of a happy grin from this one. So furry and fuzzy, cute little feet down there. I don't know how big these get. It's kind of hard to tell in this picture, although it doesn't look like nearly as big as most kangaroos, or should I say like typical kangaroos you would think of. But yeah, these might win for the most cute because, some of them gray and red kangaroos can look pretty freaky or intimidating. Not this guy, though. Now, this is the kind of stuff that most people probably wouldn't even think of or be interested in, but I totally nerd out and just think are super fascinating. This is how new vehicles are brought ashore on Norfolk Island. Okay, remember this is an Australian territory in the South Pacific. Take a look at this, right? You have, let me go to full screen actually for this. You have a cargo ship, right? Now, they have the crane. They're lifting, in this example, it looks to be like a bus or something, right? Or a big van. And there you go. You have this tiny barge, right? Strap it down, pull it with this little tug. And, what an operation, right? How weird. Boy, you hope something doesn't go wrong here. A lot of little steps to get something completed here. But then, of course, you get it over here to the dock, lift it back onto the road here. And then I suppose it can drive onto its new island home. I just think that's super fascinating. And what a tedious process, right? To over time get, dozens and dozens or hundreds of vehicles. I don't know how many we're talking here, but yeah, just one of those things a lot of people wouldn't think of, but is an interesting operation going on that most people won't ever witness. Well, this is pretty cool. We have a double humpback whale breach off of Byron Bay, Australia. Check this out. Absolutely phenomenal. Don't want to get a music strike there. Yeah, that is incredible. Now, this is something like, to me, at least, because I don't live near an ocean, I don't get to see this stuff every day. This is like something out of a movie, right? But of course, this isn't a movie. This is someone's, real life footage from a drone. Just incredible. Incredible stuff for real. Look at that. So majestic, man. Wow. If y'all have had the chance to see this with your own two eyes in person near Byron Bay, very, very lucky. I think this must be a cool experience.
It might look like a branch, but take a bit of a closer look, and it's a massive snake. A resident in inner city Brisbane has filmed the moment the curious creature reared its head from a tree, taking a peek at their home.
Wow.
It went viral online. Many were quick to compare the long-necked reptile to a brontosaurus or a brachio.
Yeah. Remember, guys, this is Australia. The snakes have graduated to literally scoping out your house from pretty considerable height in the trees. Good Lord, Australia. Oh, my God. Of course, we have the BHP train. I love seeing this. This is just fascinating. This is sped up footage, by the way. Sped up, remember. I've seen long trains, I've gotten caught at train crossings and thought, man, this thing's never ending, but boy, was I wrong. This is never ending. Remember, this is sped up. If this wasn't sped up, this would take like 10 minutes to cross the frame here. It is ridiculous how long this is. Although I would almost say somewhat majestic across that beautiful, somewhat desert landscape, at least in my eyes. 7.2 kilometers in length, by the way. 682 carriages with 8 locomotives. These are, of course, the mighty iron ore trains. Yeah, Australian cargo is crazy, man. And finally, we're going to end on this one. This is pretty wild. I don't know anything about the show nor the stuntman here. This is something called the Don Lane Show. I don't know if this is in the U.S., Australia, not sure where. But we have Grant Page. He was Australia's greatest stuntman, apparently. It was way back in 1983. Check out this clip. It's actually like a 3-minute clip, talking about it and stuff. I suggest you check it out if you can find it on your own time. But yeah, this is pretty wild stuff.
And there it is. There's a signal.
So
now
here he is.
Page. If he's ready, we're ready to go. Thumbs up. Okay, here we go, folks. The car
This
will
is
raise itself
absolutely
to
insane.
50 kilometers an hour, and he will hit the brakes 5 feet from Grant. Here we are. Ooh. You all right?
Jeez, man.
God,
Look at him.
You went so high in the air. You're supposed to go that high in the air. Aren't you supposed to roll over the back of the...
Find me afterwards.
And he's just fine. What the hell, mate? The guy gets hit by a car, jumps over it, barrel rolls, lands. What looked to be kind of hard. Just gets up, shakes hands, and goes straight to the interview. Holy smokes, Australians are freaking built different. That's it. That's all I could take. That is insane, man. Seeing people in interesting crafts like that, being a stuntman, right? That's just so odd, so fascinating that there's ways you can actually take impacts and make an art of it. You can survive stuff most people would be extremely hurt by, and you're just like, whatever, right? Another Tuesday. Somehow I feel like being Australian just helps with that. There you go. I think that's a pretty good one to end on. Hopefully that made it through the YouTube filters there. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. Lots of interesting stuff. I hope maybe you learned something. I know I did. And, I look forward to seeing you in the next one. It's going to be it. My name is Ian. You watch the IWrocker. Until next time, y'all. Catch you later.